What's up, Rods and Odd Dudes? Welcome to Odd Rod TV, and today we're going to be learning the 12 facts of David Parker Ray. For those of you who do not know, David Parker Ray is known as the Toybox Killer, and he comes from my home state, which is New Mexico. So without further ado, let's get this shit over with so I can go to sleep. David Parker Ray, also known as the Toybox Killer, kidnapped, raped, and tortured dozens of women from approximately the mid-80s to 1999, when New Mexico law enforcement finally captured him after his final victim managed to escape and run down the highway in nothing but a dog collar. Although the authorities secured a conviction against Ray for kidnap and rape in 2001, investigators never recovered the bodies of his suspected victims, preventing a murder sentence against the former government employee. So, fun fact, he was a park ranger, and we're going to get more into that, I think, in a few minutes or whatever. Ray had accomplices who actually knew what he was doing in his toy box, because they all fucking were in the toy box and helping him along with it when he was either with them or without them. So they knew what he was doing in his trailer. He actually repurposed his big ass trailer. Well, not a big ass trailer. It was like a single wide or one of those fucking storage pod things. But he had modified it into like a fucking torture chamber, and this shit was like gnarly. Like, he had a gynecological table. He had where the girls or the women would be like tied down and their legs would be put in stirrups, blindfolded. He actually had a tape where he would play and like a instructional how-to video, and the contents of the video of the tape are really graphic and it's really fucked up. There's actually no known copy of it on any general media thing. Like, who the fuck would want that? So I'm glad it's in evidence. But they do have the dialogue of what was on the tape. Like, everybody kind of wondered, where did he pick up his victims? He actually picked up most of his victims at a place called the Blue Water Saloon, yeah. And it was a dive bar that people all went to, so it was basically just a regular joint. People all walks of life went there. He did have accomplices, and which one of them was his daughter, Jessie Ray, a girl named Marie Parker. I don't think they were related. Her boyfriend, Dennis Yancey, and Parker's own girlfriend, Cynthia Hindley. Criminal profilers recognize how serial killers work in patterns. Jeffrey Dahmer picked his up at a gay bar in the Twin Cities. John Wayne Gacy picked his teens up at a bus stop, and David Parker Ray picked up women at the Blue Water Saloon. One of Jessie Ray's and David Ray's few living victims, her name was Kelly Garrett. And she testified against Jessie Ray and said that she drugged her and she assaulted her. After he was caught, he was sentenced to 224 years in prison. The courts charged Ray with 3 cases, although the FBI suspected at least 40 more unknown victims based on Ray's journal, which documented the date of the alleged abductions despite not having any bodies to use as evidence. The FBI had a strong case against the New Mexico serial rapist. So he was a very violent rapist from what the documents and court documents has stated. All the evidence logged in, the apparatus is used for those assaults. In 2001, the courts decided to put Ray through 3 separate trials, one for each of his living victims: Cynthia Jaramillo, Angelica Montano, and Kelly Garrett. Ray eventually agreed to a plea deal and received 224 years. Wow. So what he did was, in his little journal, he wrote, documented all what he did to them, what kind of torture he used on them, like what he did to their bodies. He could just say, oh, I chopped her up and threw her over there, or I fucking fed her to whatever over here. But they can't find the bodies, so they're trying to figure out where the victims are and if they will ever be found. Most of the evidence of his high body count comes to a diary that Ray kept that detailed what he did to each victim, but it doesn't say where he buried their bodies. After his arrest, Ray agreed to show the authorities where he had buried his victims, but he died of a heart attack in 2002. How convenient. At the age of 63, taking the knowledge of the burials to his grave. Handy was unable to assist investigators in recovering any bodies because he did that shit on his own. Yeah, she was there when he killed them, but not when he disposed of them, so she's basically useless. Investigators proposed Ray was able to evade detection for his crimes because he appeared to be a normal guy who had a regular job. He worked as a maintenance man for New Mexico Parks Department. See, he was like a park ranger. Basically, he is a maintenance man. So when Kelly Garrett managed to escape, not Kelly Garrett, Cynthia, there was a book that was put out about the whole assault and everything. From what I remember from reading it is that she had hit Henley in the head and she had took off. And that's how she was able to do it. But she managed to get the key to unchain her because she was shackled. So that's how she was able to escape, which is pretty fucked up and pretty sad. You know, this woman went through so much. They all went through so much, and most of them died at the hands of these people, especially at David Parker Ray at his hands. I mean, he was a fucked up individual. He developed an obsession with sadomasochism at an early age. So for what you guys do or do not know, sadomasochism is a very, very touchy subject, especially within the BDSM community. If you have any knowledge about it, you know, you understand or not understand the whole logistics of the thing, but he was exposed to certain things that kind of flip that switch, and sometimes you can flip it off, flip it on, but this guy got off on torturing people, and Dave was a fucking sadist while he did it. He liked causing pain, and this is what the result was. He made a fucking giant torture chamber, and he did some really bad shit. Ray's first foray into sadomasochism allegedly came into the mid-50s when he was just a teenager after his father left him and his sister to live with his elderly grandfather. Ray began to develop a secret fascination with sadomasochism. He even witched exactly to his first wife, Peggy, that was around the age when he kidnapped a woman, tied her to a tree, and tortured and murdered her. Authorities have not verified his account, so they don't know if that's true or not. In an interview, Peggy revealed that she had been aware of Ray's fantasies and fetishes, but she did not know how bad it was, so to the extent. Reportedly, Ray engaged in sadomasochistic relationships with prostitutes unbeknown to his wife. So he actually paid women to get down and do some fucking messed up shit. His daughter tried to tell FBI what Ray was doing back in the 80s. Ray only had one child from an early marriage. Her name was Glenda Jean, but they called her Jessie Ray. Jessie Ray was 32 in 1999 when law enforcement arrested her and her father. Reportedly, she tried to warn the FBI about what he was up to in 86. An FBI agent named Doug Belden recalled Jessie Ray's claims. She alleged that David Parker Ray was abducting, torturing women and selling them to buyers in Mexico. The allegations were so non-specific that the FBI couldn't act against Ray. Prior to the arrest, the Albuquerque Police Department had suspected Ray and his daughter in a 1995 disappearance of Jessie Ray's former girlfriend, 22-year-old Jill Torilla. Maybe they did something to her because, yeah, you know, Jessie Ray is his daughter after all. The toy box was in the middle of nowhere, so he lived in Elephant Butte, which is a small town, and it actually is a nice place, you know, because it's very, like, campy. People go camping there by the lake, and it's pretty nice over there. But for him to have that shit there is really fucked up. He had access to miles of abandoned land as well as the reservoir where police proposed that he could have dumped his victims' bodies without any witnesses. The toy box wasn't cheap. To create his trailer, Ray allegedly spent up towards $100,000 worth of torturing devices and tools. Reportedly, he constructed elaborate contraptions to confine his victims, such as a full-line coffin and a makeshift pillory. He also crafted devices to electrocute his victims and others to hold them in place. In addition, the medical instruments and sex toys, Ray's box contained elaborate locks and pulleys to prevent his captives from escaping. Be careful where you frequent, be careful what you do, don't accept drinks from fucking strangers because you never know, they might just fucking drug you and you'll end up in a fucking box like that too. So with that being said, this is my retarded little serial killer fact, episode 1. By all means, share, like, comment, dislike. Tell me I'm an asshole for recording shit about this thing, but you know, I wanted to start something different instead of just makeup and concert footages because of the whole thing. There's nothing going on and I'm tired of fucking beating my face up with makeup, so I'm tired. Yeah, just peace out, dude.